Greetings from the Shigaraki family. Before the video begins, I am grateful to the original author for granting us permission to incorporate their work into our video. I am extremely grateful. The description contains the work of the original author. We will now proceed to the video. Kingdom Hearts. Beyond Twilight by Bola 8 Sunset. Trains. A town. In the middle of it, between cozy houses with warm tile roofs, among small alleyways and brick roads, people. Good people. Peaceful people. Among the people were 4 teens. The first jogged down a set of stairs, a grin on his face. Come on guys. If we run we can get the best jobs. He had brown eyes, light skin, dark eyebrows, and spiky, blonde hair. Wearing baggy, camouflage print capris pants, a short, sleeveless, gray vest, and a black muscle shirt decorated with a white, crudely drawn skull and crossbones. His shoes were the same camouflage pattern as his pants, but also sported white tips and gray soles, and each had 2 intersecting, black belts in place of laces. On his neck, a white necklace with a yellow X charm on it, and a brown bracelet with several silver pins in it decorated his left wrist. The second was right at his heels. Hainer, if you run down the stairs you'll trip. She had bright green eyes, light skin, and brown hair. Her hair stuck out on the sides, with 2 strands of hair falling from either side of her head, draping over her shoulders and bouncing at each step. Her clothing consisted of an orange tank top with a white floral design at the bottom, khaki-colored capri pants, and orange socks with white hems. Cream shoes with black and yellow accents and black laces. To top it all off was a beaded, sky blue bracelet on her right wrist and a black necklace decorated with a spherical, sky blue charm. Behind them, the third followed sedately. She says that, but Olette is going as fast as Hainer. The kind voice belonged to a rather heavy-set boy with light skin, brown eyes, and black hair and eyebrows, his hair up with the help of a headband. He donned a short-sleeved, white shirt with dark cuffs underneath a red jersey with black and white lining. The jersey was marked with a black silhouette of a seemingly skeletal dog with 3 bones above it. The phrase, Dog Street, was printed along the left side in large, white letters. He also wore blue pants, blue and white shoes with gray soles, and a purple bandana around his neck. Behind, the last one laughed while going after his friends. Don't let her hear you pence, or you'll be the next one to get an earful. The boy had bright forest green eyes and a mess of dark green hair. His skin was very slightly sun-kissed, and freckles in diamond formation marked each of his cheeks. His get-up was made of a white shirt with a green short-sleeved jacket over it, his right arm having a black compression glove covering his arm to his wrist. He also had on black pants, with the right leg marked by a red arrow zigzagging from the rim of the pant pocket to the knee. His footwear was a pair of bright red shoes with black laces and gray soles. Pence chuckled and shot the last boy a look over his shoulder. Come on, Izuku. We all know you're the next one in line with all the reckless stunts you pull. That doesn't mean you're not also in trouble, Pence, Olette yelled from further ahead. Guys. Let's go already, Hainer groaned from down the street, the boy already leaving his friends in the dust. Wait up. Izuku picked up the pace, encouraging Pence to follow his lead. Together, the quartet tracked through the sunset roads downwards until the town's sandlot. On the way, more than one passerby greeted them and thanked Izuku. Look at Mr. Celebrity here. Buzz off, Hainer. You know those people are just grateful that I help around town. While you're right, you have to admit that doing half the town's odd jobs for free isn't something anyone would do. Olette's right. How do you even have time for all that? I think the right question to ask, Pence, is, Hainer elbowed Izuku's side, you're not gonna do it this time around, right? I mean, nope. We have to get paid if we want to save enough to go to the beach. That town holiday is coming up soon and we won't have enough for tickets and food if you don't put the goody 2-shoes routine aside and get paid. The taller boy shot his friend a glare. Izuku put his hands up in surrender. Okay, you win. Until we save enough, I'll make sure to collect the payment for every job I get from the board. Great. Pencer inched closer to Olette and whispered, he doesn't even suspect Izuku just said he's still not gonna charge anyone from the help he goes around town offering, right? The girl chuckled. You have to admit it, Izuku can be sneaky when he wants to. Hey, slowpokes. What's the matter? Nothing. We're going. They quickened their steps and hid their laughs. Soon reaching the sandlot, Hayner grinned at spotting the full board across the sand pit. See? Told you guys we would get the best jobs if we ran. He made to approach the board, only to have his path cut. And who told you our board was up for grabs, huh? The one to bar Hayner was a muscular teenage boy with blonde hair and teal eyes, bearing a distinctive diagonal scar across the bridge of his nose. He was wearing a blue crop top vest with white lining under a floor-length, sleeveless white coat with a black lapel. He had baggy, aubergine pants belted with a cream-colored lace, which were tucked into black combat boots with light blue laces. He had a black toque on his head with the kanji. All in all, he looked like a delinquent. You're bored? Get real, Seifert. The job boards are public. Anyone can use them. Not this one. This one is exclusive to the Twilight Town Disciplinary Committee. Izuku rolled his eyes. Your make-believe committee, that's more of a gang. That's more of you and your groupie's little clique. He looked around. Where are they, by the way? Without Fu and Vivi to pull their weight, your general IQ gets too close to the single digits. What did you say, punk? Seifert pushed past Hayner, to the boy's vocal complaints, to tower over Izuku. The shorter boy wasn't intimidated, he was instead holding back a grin. Hook, line, and sinker. What, wanna fight? You bet. I'll show you punk how to have some proper respect. Seifert glared at the younger teens, and after I'm done, you all better get out of my sight. Izuku shrugged, still not looking bothered. Sure, but if I win, then you're the one that'll have to leave and stop bothering us. Deal? And why would I make a deal with you? If you're scared, just say it, man. No one's gonna think less of you. Pence, who had caught on to what his friend was doing, helped stoke the fire. Oh, you're on. Seifert shoulder checked Izuku on his way to the equipment racks. The younger boy held his ground but didn't push back. Did you have to do this? Olette was conflicted between rolling her eyes at how easy it was to goad Seifert or facepalming at her friend's plan. Yes, we did. Pencer patted Izuku's shoulder, kick his butt. Hayner punched the green-haired boy's arm, extra hard, just to make sure. I'm usually against solving problems with my fists, but Seifert doesn't exactly give me other options, so, Izuku smirked, leave it to me. Izuku made his way to the middle of the sandlot, just in time to catch the struggle bat Seifert threw his way. The weapon was a simple padded blue bat with a yellow handle that curved at the end. Usual street rules? Yes. Don't go crying when you eat sand. Don't complain when you eat your words. Izuku didn't like to trash talk, at all, but basically every quip made Seifert lose his cool, and that was already half of the battle won. Case in point, Seifert gritted his teeth and stopped the subtle movement of his outstretched bat. His tactic was solid, most of the time. His bat pointed straight at the opponent while slightly swaying, confusing his enemies if they focused on it. With that out of the way, it was easy to predict Seifert's attacks. The IRST lunge, Izuku sidestepped. The following swing he ducked. And the overhead attack was too slow to connect before Izuku smashed his bat on Seifert's midsection. The taller teen skipped back a step from the hit, then took another to dodge Izuku's following strike. You fight like a thug, you know that? No technique. Talking a lot for the guy that got hit first. Izuku might have pushed Seifert's buttons a little too much. His opponent dashed in with a blitzing thrust that made Izuku backpedal, then another that made him stumble. The third would nail Izuku right between the eyes, but the boy decided to forego his unstable footing and flipped back, using a handstand to fling himself away and get some distance. He stuck the landing and his friends cheered. Show off, Seifert spat out. Izuku chuckled. It wasn't his fault, he was very good at stunts like that. That's the best you got? His probing made Seifert dash at him. Izuku responded in kind, and they quickly closed the distance, feet pounding on the sand. Something went through Izuku's head like a tiny lightning bolt, shocking his brain painfully for a split second. He knew. Somehow, Izuku knew Seifert would lunge at the last stretch, pouncing at the shorter boy like a panther. That's why, before Seifert's shoes even finished leaving the ground, Izuku dropped. He slid under Seifert, eyes locking in surprise on both their faces. Izuku forced his stop and hopped back up, bringing his struggle bat around for an overhead strike that struck Seifert square on the back just when he landed. Izuku shook away the pain in his skull. What was that? Uck. Cypher punched the ground, his face red. You got lucky, you hear? Next time, I'm kicking you to the curb. Rolling his eyes, Izuku offered his defeated opponent a hand. We'll see about that. The helpful hand was batted aside. Cypher stood on his own and stomped away, grumbling under his breath. That guy is a piece of work. Olette quipped while patting some sand off Izuku's jacket. Nice moves, I didn't expect you to pull a fast one like that. Yeah, man. Since when do you have crazy reflexes like that? Heiner's slap was less to help with the sand and more a rough show of affection on his part. He was right about me getting lucky. Izuku playfully pushed his friends away, finishing tidying himself the best he could. I don't know if the light caught my eyes wrong or what, but I got a headache and I think I tripped. But when life gives you lemons, throw them at Cypher. Heiner guffawed, his friends doing a better job at holding it but also laughing. Don't be a jerk, we don't need to drop to his level. Olette bumped her shoulder on Izuku's, but that was some crazy luck. Still, you okay? I think the only thing harmed in the fight was Cypher's pride. Izuku's verbal jab earned him a physical one. You better stop, too. Heiner, stop being a bad influence. Hey. What do I have to do with anything? Just as the three were about to bicker some more, Pence called for them. Hey guys. You have to see this. The last member of the group was standing before the job board, a frown heavy on his face. The trio rushed closer, seeing the note that got Pence's attention. Missing cat. Cat Cairo has been missing since last night. Lastly spotted close to the hole in the outer wall leading to the forest. Find Cairo and bring her back. Payment, 300 money. That's the cat of the old lady that has the candy shop, right? Yeah. Izuku picked the notice up. I'm taking this one. Heiner huffed. You're not even going to give the other ones a look? This seems more urgent than carrying bags and delivering mail, don't you think? Izuku pocketed the job request, not doubting his decision for a second. Just be happy I'm not doing it pro bono. You better not. Olette shook her head fondly. That Izuku for you, always rushing to help everyone. He shrugged helplessly, which made her giggle. Just be careful out there, okay? We don't need you getting lost in the woods too. Pencer picked another notice and held it up for Izuku to see. I'll pick this one to take out the trash from the plaza shops, so if you need help I'll be close by. Thanks, Pence. I think that leaves me on poster duty. I'll try leaving the plaza for last, so I'll also be there when I'm done. Heiner gave his friends a grin, which they returned. Olette studied the board, but there was nothing else in the area. Oh well, I think I'll get the one for carrying crates inside shops' storerooms. That one pays well and I can get Eri after her extra classes for you. They instantly saw Izuku deflating in relief. Thanks a bunch, Olette. I don't know how long this is gonna take and I would hate to make Eri go back home on her own. Yeah. You're a responsible big brother. Heiner pushed Izuku. Now get going. That cat isn't going to find itself. It's a cat. It's a female cat that deserves the base respect all living beings do. Get moving already. Heiner planted his shoe on Izuku's backside and, for all intents and purposes, kicked his butt, even if it was more a shove than a kick. They laughed while parting ways. With a pep on his steps, Izuku picked up the pace and was quickly running down the street full stop. Someone needed a hero. The track from the sandlot to the plaza was a couple of minutes most days, but at his pace, Izuku needed only 2. He went past the sewer entrance and up the ramp, making sure the tram wasn't coming and marched to the wall separating the town from the woods. An accident some time ago with one of the trams opened a hole in it that went straight through. There were talks of fixing it but things were slow going thanks to endless bureaucracy, so the hole wasn't going away anytime soon. Unfortunately for the cat that got lost thanks to it, fortunately for the boy searching for said cat. It beat a trip through the sewers, that's for sure. Izuku stood at the edge of the passage and checked the ground. No trail, looks like I'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. He took a deep breath and entered the woods. The tall trees with their full crowns blotted out the sun, leaving the forest mostly dark with a few rays of light coming through so a person could see where they were going. Izuku kept his eyes peeled and his steps light, not wanting to see what else was hiding in those parts along with the missing cat. His stroll through nature finally got Izuku a clue. Small scratch marks on a tree's bark, with another one a little ahead with much the same. Did Cairo climb these trees? Looking up showed that both trees' branches up ahead were close. No, she climbed this one and went down the other one. Was she avoiding something? Izuku approached the second tree. Noticing the underbrush showed something small passed through it and made its way further into the woods. Found you. With a grin and renewed enthusiasm, Izuku followed the trail. It brought him around and up a slope, the woods opening up to a clearing. The boy blinked, seeing the old mansion with iron gates and brick walls barring entrance. I didn't know this was here. Getting closer, the boy saw the gate wasn't locked, and the yard beyond it with what might have been arches that ended up crumbling with time and littering the grass. This place has been abandoned for a while, huh? Izuku took a step closer. Bzz. Another one. B's. And another. Bzzzzz. The sharp bolt of lightning went through his head again just when Izuku reached the mansion's gates. The boy ducked, barely avoiding two blindingly fast strikes to the head. Izuku hit the floor and rolled away, getting back to his feet and seeing the thing that attacked him. It was a bizarre silver-white being, lanky and jittery like a full-body straitjacket come to life. Its long hands were bound by belts, the fingers ending in sharp points. The sides of the being's body had dark blue lines where little lights blinked up its form, as if LEDs were fused to it. The strangest of it all was the thing's head, the flat top marked by a symbol like an inverted incomplete heart on the bottom with a pointy cross at the top. The mouth was shut closed by a zipper. Before Izuku's eyes, it unzipped itself, and the true mouth, jagged and dark, came into view. BBBBZZZZZZZZZZZZZ. What is this thing? Izuku tensed. The white noise in his head, like a TV bursting with static, got louder the more he looked at the silvery creature. Another snap of electricity through his brain, and Izuku jerked back just as the thing's hands slashed at him, stretching impossibly far. Back off. His hand went to his side, where the struggle bat he forgot to stash away while in the sandlot was hooked to the rim of his pants. He swung the bat, but the rubbery limbs evaded his counterattack. The creature started moving erratically, almost dancing from side to side. BBs. It leapt at Izuku, but the boy went around it and put some distance between them. The monster followed, and Izuku knew then and there that it wouldn't stop until it got him. BBBs. It was focused on him, but why? Questions for later. It was dangerous, and Izuku didn't fancy taking a beating or whatever else the monster had in mind. He raised his bat and waited for it to dance closer. While the movements seemed random from how jittery it was, there was a pattern there. Right. Left. Right. Left. Back. BBBs. Now, the thing lunged and Izuku struck. The bat was about to collide when the creature twisted into itself, making Izuku whiff the attack. B's. The opening was enough for it to strike back, headbutting his side faster than he could get his footing back to dodge. For how lanky it looked, the monster hit like a truck. Izuku gasped as his body flew, his whole right side flaring in pain. He hit the ground and rolled back to his feet, gritting his teeth. B's. B's. Bzzz. The thing came at him, pressing the advantage and leaving Izuku scrambling to dodge each of its blindingly fast swipes. His luck ran out when his shoe failed to find traction on what remained of the beaten dirt path leading to the mansion. Izuku stumbled when his left leg slid back, ending on his knee. The monster saw its chance and pounced, arms thrown wide to cleave into the boy. Time seemed to freeze for a second. Izuku's eyes were blown wide in shock, his face falling at the realization he wouldn't make it. That was it? No, not yet. Quote NTFTRVERY acute HING, NNTH. Quote. Izuku gritted his teeth and grasped his bat with both hands. His arms burned. His heart drummed in his chest. The boy roared, smash, he swung. In a move so fast not even Izuku was able to keep track, he swung his struggle bat upwards. The power behind the movement kicked up a veritable whirlwind. The monster took the full brunt of it. Its rubbery flesh was torn apart by the force, disintegrating into blank white motes with a sound like cloth ripping and radio static. Izuku fell back on his rear, dropping the bat and gasping for air. That was close, too close. He brought his arms up, seeing them shaking. What was that? He tried to still his hands by balling them into fists. His right hand was burning. No, not all of it, only the scars. Izuku stared at his crooked fingers and blemished skin, feeling like a live wire was hidden underneath each mark. Why did he feel like that? Meow. The sound made the boy perk back up. Izuku stood, leaving behind the struggle bat. The body was broken and the padding ripped, making it pretty much useless. Approaching the source of the sound, Izuku saw a small furry body hiding behind the debris littering the yard. Cairo? It's me, Izuku. Me and my friends go to the candy shop all the time, remember? He slowly inched closer. Your owner put on a notice on the job board to find you. The cat, purple with a cream underside, paws, and tail tip, came closer, her orange eyes glimmering. She meowed again and scratched her neck over the orange leash with cream-colored crescents on it. Everything is all right now. Izuku extended his hand slowly and petted Cairo's head, earning a purr from the cat. I took care of that thing. We can go back to the town now. Muro. The cat backed away from Izuku's hand, turning her head aside. Izuku blinked and followed her line of sight. There, on the second floor, on the left side of the mansion. Green eyes met blue. Izuku didn't even have the chance to really see the person before they pulled the curtains closed. He frowned. Someone's living here. Even a cursory inspection showed the front yard was abandoned and had been for quite some time. If it's this bad out here, I don't want to imagine what the inside of this place looks like. Cairo purred in agreement. From the look on its feline face, she didn't like the fact any more than Izuku. Resolving himself to see things all the way through, Izuku gently picked up the cat and deposited her safely on the hood of his jacket. Let's go take a look inside. Meow. Cairo made herself comfortable on her new spot and perched her head on the crook of Izuku's neck, making the boy smile. Taking a deep breath to try to settle his nerves, the boy slowly marched to the front doors. Here's hoping breaking and entering won't be necessary. He tried the handles and the doors creaked open. The inside of the mansion was even worse than the outside. Some type of centerpiece display was broken, with glass shards hazarding the floor. The air was dusty, with tick particles floating lazily on the air. There was no power, with only the sunset light coming from the windows and the glass doors to the courtyard further in. Definitely abandoned. Something creaked on the second floor, drawing Izuku's eyes to the elevated corridor that circled the entry hall. Or maybe not. Meow. Yeah, no use standing around. Carefully making his way to the flights of stairs, Izuku climbed them slowly, just to make sure no faulty board or hidden piece of broken glass got the better of him. Reaching the second floor, he saw that there was a door at the end of each wing. Which meant, whoever is here should be this way. He took a step closer. Another one. And another. Izuku stopped before the door as if waiting for something. Nothing. He reached for the handle. The door was pulled open. The boy was startled, eyes locking with the person he saw from outside. She was a girl maybe his age, maybe a little younger. Her soft features made it hard to tell. She was also shorter than Olette, and her pale skin made it look like the girl hadn't gone out in the sun in ages. Her blonde hair was draped across her right shoulder. It seemed like it should be a golden color, but got pale along her skin from lack of sunlight. Her blue eyes appeared faded, lacking light in them. Izuku's chest twisted seeing that. The girl was wearing a pure white dress, sleeveless, with lace-patterned embroidery on the hem, and reaching her mid-thighs. Her feet were on light blue sandals decorated with yellow flowers. That made Izuku's mind compare the girl to a wilting flower, forgotten inside an abandoned mansion for too long with no one to take care of it. Meow. Cairo broke the silence spell that had fallen over the two teens. The girl flinched back, and Izuku realized he was probably invading her house. Sorry to come in like that. The door was open, and I was worried someone was trapped here with one of those things. She let go of the door and clutched a sketchbook to her chest. Things? Yeah, I got attacked by something really weird just outside. Izuku scratched the back of his neck, a nervous tick of his. It was white, and jittery, and really strong. It jumped me, and it was really hard to beat, but I managed. Somehow. I got worried when I saw you through the window. Thought if one was waiting outside, then MRE could be sneaking around in here. It would be hard for a dusk to barge in. Her voice was subdued, gentle but afraid. She was scared of him. It made Izuku's heart clench painfully in his chest. Dusk, is that what those things are called? The girl nodded slowly, eyes down. They're the weakest nobodies. A group of them can cause trouble, but by itself, they're not much. Harsh. All around, the girl just called that dusk thing a weakling, which made Izuku feel pretty bummed from having so much trouble taking it down. Well, he tried after the silence turned awkward. My name is Izuku, by the way. Blue orbs flicked to him and then back down. Namine. It came out as barely a whisper. Izuku was still able to catch it. That's a nice name. Most people in the town don't have names in a style similar to mine, so it's good to, meet you and see you have it too. And he started to ramble, trying to not make things awkward, which ended with him making a fool of himself. Good going, Izuku. Still, Namine looked at him startled for a moment before the most fragile smile he had ever seen graced her lips. Thank you. A hero should also save their souls. The thought came and went like the wind, but left behind something determined like steel. This place seems a little run down. Izuku grimaced. That was the nicest way to put it. You're here all on your own? Namine shook her head. There's other people here too. Izuku waited for more confirmation that someone was taking care of her, looking after her, anything. Nothing else came. Tightening his fists, he pushed down the storm brewing in his mind in favor of opening a smile. Would you like to come with me to the town? I have to bring this little girl back to her owner. Maybe we can get some ice cream while there. When her eyes locked with him again, there was a tiny flicker of light in them. It went out a moment later. She shook her head, her grip on the sketchbook tighter. I can't go out. Izuku fought to keep smiling even while his jaw put so much pressure on his teeth that it was a miracle they didn't break. Izuku would do something about it. He would save her. Pushing the stab of pain in his head down, he nodded. That's okay. I think I'll just have to show up tomorrow with some. Now Namine's face was shocked. Why, you can't? Of course I do. He would like to see anyone try to stop him. You look like you could use some company, and people in town say I'm great to have around. Namine trailed off, looking unsure. Like she wanted him to come back but was afraid he would truly do it. In the end, Izuku was a stranger who just popped out and tried to force himself into a situation he knew nothing about. However, even if he knew it wasn't right, something told Izuku he also wasn't wrong. He didn't know what he was getting into, but the only way to figure out was poking his nose where it didn't belong. If you're gonna get into trouble, Izuku started, seeing Namine's fright at the idea. Just as her face fell, he grinned. Say you told me to keep away but I came anyway. The light was back, and this time around, it stayed. Why would you do that? Izuku's grin widened. You look like you need a hero. Her eyes bore into his, all the way to his soul, with an innocent curiosity normally reserved for small children. What's a hero? The question left Izuku out of balance. Why would she ask something so simple? And why was it so hard to answer? You see, Izuku scratched the back of his neck, trying to find the right words. A hero is someone who saves people with a smile, who makes sure everything will be alright. His response came out naturally, so why did it feel wrong? Was Izuku missing something? Oh. Okay. Namine seemed as unsatisfied with the answer as Izuku felt. Then I'll see you tomorrow? Yes. Trying to force cheer back in his tone appeared to work. I'll come right after school. Promise. BZZ. If you need something, or if one of those dusks shows up, you can find me or my friends on the way to the train station. If not, just ask at the shops for me. Most people know me. Keeping his smile turned harder and harder as his hackles raised. There was something wrong, and it made Izuku break into a cold sweat. Namine didn't notice Izuku's sudden apprehension. Okay, thank you. He didn't want to leave. Bees. But something told Izuku things wouldn't end well if he stayed. It's fine. I have to go and take Cairo here home. See you tomorrow. Bye. Namine watched as Izuku reluctantly turned away and walked back to the first floor, then out of the mansion. She returned to her room and watched through the window as the boy who simply barged in and offered her kindness almost no one else had waved back at her. She didn't deserve such kindness. Olette smiled at the little girl matching her steps as both walked down the main street to the plaza. So Eri, you managed to finish all your lessons today? A head of long white hair nodded, ruby red eyes sparkling. Yes, I wrote everything right this time, and I didn't even need Joshua's help. You can ask Jill, she was with us the entire time. Some of her hair got hooked on the girl's horn. A stubby little thing, colored a pale yellow that grew on the right side of her head. She blew it away and pouted, making Olette giggle. Embarrassed, Eri fiddled with the hem of her beige sweater. Alongside it, She wore a white skirt and black leggings with white flower embroidery on the calves. She had red shoes the same color as Izuku's on her feet but with 2 Velcro straps instead of laces. Trying to move past her blunder, Eri turned back to Olette. What about you and the others? Did you take any fun jobs? Well, after Cypher tried to give us grief about taking the jobs on the Sandlot's board, and Izuku beat him up in a struggle match. Izuku is the best. At the younger girls' cheer, Olette broke down laughing. Yes he is, Eri. He tricked Cypher into a battle and then beat him fair and square, so that big bully left us alone. On the board, there was a job to find a missing cat. Oh no, yes, we also got worried, but Izuku took it without thinking twice. Then Pence got the trash one on the plaza to stay as backup if Izuku needed help. She grinned, having Eri's rapid attention, and Hainer got the posters one, so I'm sure he ran all around town putting them up before rushing to the plaza too. And what about you? I stayed on crate and unicorn duty today. The teen couldn't hold back a laugh at Eri's hands shooting to her horn. Hey, don't worry, I think your horn is really cute. Eri whined. Cypher made fun of it, and I remember Izuku and Hainer dropkicking him for that. I think even Pence would have taken a shot at him if he wasn't too busy holding me back. And that was saying a lot, as Pence was the last person to partake in violence. That's because you took out your nail bat. Eri, sweetie. Olette stopped and kneeled before Eri to be at the same height. When a girl gets to a certain age, having a baseball bat full of nails becomes mandatory. Why? You'll learn when you get older. What the heck are you teaching Eri? The brief moment of girl talk was interrupted by Hainer. He jogged closer while giving his friend a deadpan. How to grow up prepared. Don't listen to her, Eri, she's crazy. Hey. The little unicorn pulled on the boy's vest. Olette said you were gonna wait on the plaza with Pence for Izuku. Choosing to answer over bickering, the blonde ruffled Eri's hair with a smirk. He just came back, actually. I ran ahead to search for you too while the others got the goods. Weren't we holding off to save for the beach? Olette's unimpressed stare made Hainer roll his eyes. The candy shop lady gave Izuku a discount for finding her cat. With how much he's paying, he can stock up and still meet his quota for the day. Eri pulled at his clothes again. What's a quota? What? Huh, you see, before Hainer could try to explain, or Olette could make fun of another voice answered. A quota is a certain quantity of something that must be produced in a determined period of time. Izuku and Pence walked in, bags in hand, and the latter finished his explanation. For example, the 4 of us agreed to make at least 200 money per day, that way when the holiday comes up, we'll have enough to go to the beach. Eri gasped in excitement. Really? She ran closer and hopped in front of Izuku. Can we go to the beach? Can we? Yup. Izuku passed the bags he was carrying to one hand to scoop up Eri with the other. We're gonna get enough for the tickets there and back, and for food too. Then we all are gonna spend a whole day on the beach. Yay. Eri hugged his neck, making Izuku laugh. Those two are too pure for this world. Olette had her cupped hands over her mouth and nose, trying to hold back tears at the scene before her. Yup. So sweet I'm getting cavities. Hainer wasn't moved by it. Pence shook his head in exasperation. His friend sometimes just couldn't read the mood. I think you're not gonna get any ice cream then. What? Why? Because the sugar is giving you cavities. But sea salt ice cream has salt. And where do you think the sweetness comes from? Izuku, after the little moment with Eri, joined Pence in making fun of Hainer. I think you're expecting too much from the guy who caused a fire in the home economics class. Hey, it was an accident. More like a miracle. How did you cause a fire with pasta? It was just boiling water and putting in the noodles. Olette also ganged up on Hainer, the blonde squawking at being outed. Eri laughed at the group's shenanigans all the way to the train station. They took the back entrance inside, and up they went. The clock tower over the station was the highest point in Twilight Town, and the balcony at the top proportioned the best view. A sea of houses, and beyond it a sea of trees. The sky painted with warm colors as the sun slowly went under the line of the horizon. That was what greeted the group of 5 as they sat at the edge of the balcony, legs dangling along with the breeze. In hand, each of them had a light blue popsicle. Their little tradition, ending each day watching the sunset while enjoying sea salt ice cream and each other's company. Hainer sat on the rightmost side, with Pence at his left, then Olette, and finally Izuku and Eri, the first holding the ladder close at his side. They slowly ate their treats, all but Izuku. Hey, guys. What would you say if someone asked what a hero was? Ask if they're okay on the head. Olette reached from behind Pence and punched Hainer for his stupid response, making him yelp. Okay, geez. I'd say a hero is someone strong enough to take on any problem. That's so childish. Olette giggling got her a raspberry from Hainer. The girl only giggled more. A hero is someone who isn't afraid to sacrifice themselves for other people. They can give themselves for the good of others. Eri watched Izuku, examining every part of his face with a frown on her face as if searching for something. The boy didn't even realize it, too busy in his own head. I thought something like that too, but that answer doesn't seem to ring true, you guys know what I mean. Pence, who had also been quietly contemplating, nodded. Yeah, I do. I think it's just because that's not really it. Being a hero is doing what's right, and yeah, sometimes what is right is hard and you need to give it your all and then some. But sometimes, it isn't. He glanced down at the town below, seeing so many people looking so small, with their problems looking so small, because sometimes it is easy. Sometimes there isn't anything to it but a small act of kindness. You just have to care enough to offer a hand to someone who needs it. Pence's surprisingly deep introspection left almost all of them speechless, almost. Like Izuku. Eri buried herself closer to his side. He's always helping everyone, with big things, with small things, and even with silly things. That's right. I think that being a hero is first of all about being a good person. Pence finished with a smile. On his hand, the popsicle stick was marked with a bold winner and a small crown. Izuku smiled, something finally clicking into place for him. I think you're right. Maybe, just maybe, some goodness was all there was to it. Someone was calling him. He was sinking. Down, down and down. The voice knew him. He knew who it belonged to. Stop what? His fall softly ended. He stood in a black void, nothing in sight no matter where one looked. Stop. Something felt heavy in his hand. Stop running. He knew what it was. Someone gave it to him. Something important. Stop running away. Izuku bolted up, sitting so quickly his sight swung and his head felt light. Blinking the dizziness away. Only the familiar sight of his room greeted him. Or their room, as it was the case. Eri, still bundled on the blanket and softly snoring, thankfully wasn't roused up by him. Izuku patted her head and sighed, something felt off. He glanced at the room, at their queen-sized bed tucked in a corner next to the window, at the long desk they shared to do schoolwork, at the old rug littered with toys, knickknacks, and what have you that they collected. The wardrobe, nothing was out of place. Well, their stuff that should be on the shelves was strewn around, but that happened more often than not. Izuku wasn't going back to sleep either way, so he might as well put order to that mess. He slipped out of the bed, being careful not to wake Eri, or step on something, and put everything where it belonged. Stopping by the window, the boy glanced outside at the town painted with warm colors. It was strange. How the sun stayed on an orbit that never put it over the line of the horizon completely. Unlike, but it has always been like that. Izuku shook the odd line of thought away, blaming his still foggy brain. Maybe breakfast would help him wake up. He had to get started on it anyway, as both he and Eri had to go to school soon. Wait for it. Pence would someday like to know why he always got hooped on their shenanigans, but now, he had a job to do. It was almost the end of the school day now, with barely a minute left on the clock, and as always he had to mark the start of the race. Which race? The one that happened every day, where the two participants decided to be menaces to society and make it everyone's problem. Wait for it. Izuku and Hainer both were at the edge of their seats, bags in hand and muscles coiled to go. Now, Pence slapped the table and they were off. Hainer had the lead at the start thanks to being closer to the door, but Izuku was hot on his heels. They tore down the hallway like jets, dodging other people leaving the classrooms. Many who cheered them on, used to the boys' antics. The intersection came up and they split, each ducking into a different corridor. Izuku reached the stairway and leapt down the whole thing, grabbing the banister and flinging himself down the other flight of stairs. He hit the ground running and went deeper into the building before taking a hard left to the elementary-level classrooms. 1, 2, 3 doors. Now, in a maneuver so smooth it indicated he had done it countless times, Izuku went low and threw his arms wide for a grab. The moment Eri put her foot out of her classroom, she got swept by the green blur speeding past. Unicorn secured. Now he only has to beat Hainer to the exit. To make things fair, as Izuku had to make a detour, his friend and rival runner had to take the long route that basically made him circle the whole second floor before arriving at the stairs. That meant that when Izuku looped back, the blonde had just arrived at the ground floor. The moment Hainer had to take a turn was all Izuku needed to take the lead, speeding past him. "Oh, come on," Hainer cried out while doing his best to catch up. It still wasn't enough, as in a clean straight line, Izuku had him beat. Eri looked over his shoulder and waved at Hainer, UCH to the boy's chagrin, "Bye-bye." "Oh, come on." His yell did nothing to stop Izuku, who reached the doors leading outside to blessed freedom first. The winner of the day's race barged through the doors and leapt down the steps, hitting the bricks and booking down the street. Hainer got out a moment later, struggling for breath. "How do you do it?" "Lots of training." Even while answering, Izuku was still getting further away. "Where the heck are you going?" "I need to do something today. Meet you guys at the usual spot later." "But what about today's quota?" Unfortunately for Hainer, Izuku was already out of earshot by then. The blonde slumped, still heaving from the day's race. "And that makes what? 70-something to 20. Olette walked down the steps beside Pence, who was noting the score down. 21. Hainer corrected with too much enthusiasm for who had more than 3 times the number of losses. "I upped my workouts again." "You know you still only win when you get lucky, right?" Pence put the notepad away and adjusted his backpack, shooting his friend a teasing grin. "Yesh. Rub it in, don't you? But let's be fair, Izuku trains like a psychopath." Hainer finally got his breath under control and straightened back up, not feeling all that bothered by the result of their competition. "Some guys at the town's public gym that are a head taller than me don't lift as much as Izuku does." "Really?" Olette was impressed, but more than that, confused. "How does he do that?" "By being completely shredded." Pence nodded and supported the claim. "Izuku uses large clothes, so you can't really say, but he's built like a brick house." She raised an eyebrow. "And how do you know that?" "Remember that one time we fell on a dumpster?" Hainer slapped Pence's shoulder. "We said we wouldn't talk about that. We said we wouldn't talk about how we ended up like that, not about the situation in itself." Olette had to clap to get the boy's attention. "As much as that sounds like a really funny story, how did that end with you both seeing Izuku without his clothes?" "Don't make it sound weird," Hainer grumbled and shot Olette a dirty look, which only made her giggle. Shaking his head, he rubbed the side of his neck while remembering the rest of the story. He got unlucky and landed on a trash bag that burst and rubbed all over his back. He was fine, but his shirt was a lost cause, so he had to get rid of it. "I also lost my left sock." Hainer gave Pence a weird look. "I still don't get how you only lost your sock and not your shoe." The portly boy could only shrug. "A mystery for another day." Olette rolled her eyes, used to the group's weird antics. "Huh, how long do you think he had to work out to get like that?" "Years." Hainer shook his head at Pence's answer. "Not so sure about that. I saw Izuku's routine. That went beyond what a sane person would do." "Okay. You're worrying me now." Olette knew when Hainer was exaggerating and when he was being serious. This time, it was the latter. "Is it that bad?" "Worse." Pence hummed, mind swirling. "Why do you think he does it? I mean, if he's like that, then he has to have a reason, right?" "Yeah." Hainer frowned, trying and failing to come up with an answer. Izuku had been like that since they met. But again, they hadn't met all that long ago. Izuku skidded to a halt right before the door to a house on the bigger side, compared to what one would usually see in Twilight Town. The steps were decorated with vases filled with white flowers and led to a red door with a brass emblem that seemed to be some type of bird. The house was large, taking a whole corner of a town block, having 2 stories and balconies to the windows. The house just had this whole thing that screamed, rich person's house, but that was the least important part about it. What truly mattered was the people living in it. Izuku knocked on the door. "We're here." "Just a second," a voice called out, and a moment later the door opened to reveal who it belonged to. The girl should be Izuku's age or maybe a year older. Her pale skin was like fresh snow and her blue eyes like ice mirrors, her hair shoulder length, and a black that took a turn to gray in color. She was wearing a white dress with blue trimming, the sleeves ending on her wrists where 2 red bracelets rested. The article reached her knees, showing she was wearing black tights too. Her footwear was a pair of boots with enough of a heel to not be flat but not enough to truly be a heel. "Hey, Jill, sorry, we're late." Izuku put Eri down, letting her hug and greet Jill herself. The teenage girl smiled and returned the hug. "A minute or two is hardly enough to call late. Don't you think so, Eri?" "Yes, but Izuku is silly sometimes." "Hey, only sometimes?" The new voice came from inside the house, and a pair of footsteps announced its other 2 occupants. "Clive, don't be mean." Jill shot the teenage boy her age a bemused glance. Clive laughed good-naturedly, running his hands clad in red gloves over his short black hair. He was the tallest and oldest of their little group, even if his cool blue eyes had a certain childish energy to them. His skin tone was much like Izuku's, made a shade darker from long days working under the sun. It went along with his get-up: a red muscle shirt that showed his athletic frame, a black leather jacket that had a symbol like the one on the door emblazoned on the left breast, and a red bracelet with a pinkish-red jewel tied to it. His black trousers had the rims and knees faded from wear, and his red belt had its steel buckle losing its luster. Clive's whole appearance showed he wasn't afraid of putting in the work, if at least he put the same effort into thinking before talking. "I'm not being mean, only asking when Izuku here isn't silly. When he's giving you a run for your money, Mr. Swordsman." The boy beside Clive pushed his way past him and went to greet Eri and Izuku, not bothering with Clive's indignant huff. He should be 10, more or less, but had an air of maturity and kindness that was beyond his years. The boy had neck-length strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes the same color as Clive. His skin was pale but healthy, and the boy's smile was warm. He was wearing a red cardigan with plaid rims over a white t-shirt with a blue pattern going through the neckline, the same symbol on the left breast as the older teen, while also having a matching bracelet on his left wrist. His dusty brown shorts had laces that were tied in a knot to hold them up, and on his feet, he used a pair of short red socks and strapped leather shoes with black soles. "Joshua." Eri hugged the boy while Izuku rubbed his hair, both more than happy to see Joshua. "That's definitely a warmer welcome than I got." Jill shook her head at Clive's grumbling. "Well, we all know which one of the Rossfield brothers has a way with words. Don't worry, Clive, you have other charms." She smiled while he sulked. Turning back to their visitors, Jill clapped. "So, you ready for today's lesson, Eri?" "Yes." The girl raised her arm high and hopped, trying to add a few extra inches to it. Izuku shook his head with a smile. "Leave it to Jill to get kids excited to study even more. You sure I can't pay you for giving Eri extra classes?" The shock made him jolt back just in time to avoid a lengthy nail poking his nose. Jill, along with the brothers, looked very unamused. "Listen here, and listen well. After what you have done, the absolute least we do to pay you back is this. I just did the right thing." Which was getting under a massive fallen tree in the middle of a storm and holding it up. Izuku corrected Clive. "We held it up. Yes, that's why not only I wasn't crushed, but we managed to rescue Torgal. You would have done the same thing for me, and you wouldn't have wanted to do something to show your gratitude?" Joshua verbally checkmated Izuku, and to add salt to the wound added, "And would you have taken no for an answer?" Trying to dig himself out of the hole he got himself into, Izuku changed the subject. "Speaking of, where's Torgal?" Clive rolled his eyes, subtle. He shook his head, deciding to give Izuku an out. "He's at the vet getting trimmed. We love that pup to bits, but he sure can shed." To prove his point, Clive pulled a stray bundle of gray fur from his jacket. "And I should go get him, it must be almost over by now." "You do that." Izuku clapped his friend on the shoulder with a smile. Turning to Eri, he kneeled. "And you be good, Kay?" "Okay." Joshua tilted his head, finding it strange how Izuku seemed to be in a hurry. "Are you going somewhere?" "Yeah. I have to meet a new friend I made the other day. I should get going. See you guys later." Izuku quickly waved and rushed away, a plan already on his mind for what he would do. Meddling on other people's business, basically. Jill hummed, a smirk slowly parting her lips. "Interesting." "What? Nothing. Now go get Torgal." Jill shooed Clive away and took the kids inside. She later could verify if her hunch was right. Izuku deserved some happiness, after everything. Namine put down her last drawing, hazy eyes barely capable of making out the image. It didn't matter, it would do as long as it reconstructed the memory tied to it, and eliminated the one before. It didn't matter. It was fake. Fake like the lies she told. Fake like her. Fake. She glanced at the window of her pure white room, the only part of it she didn't hate. No, that was fake too. Then why did it hurt so much to be trapped in another ivory cage? That boy waved at her yesterday. Should she have waved back? No, that would only have made them angrier. Namine couldn't get distracted, she had to. A knock on the door. Her body jolted with a wave of dread before pushing it down. It was fake too. It had to be. Namine grabbed her sketchbook and made her way to the door. It wouldn't do her any favors to keep them waiting. She was so tired she didn't even realize neither of them would have bothered to knock. Imagine her surprise when Izuku was there waiting in front of her room, a smile on his face and buckets and brooms in his hands. Hey, sorry I took so long to come, had to make a quick detour to grab all of this. He shrugged and made the cleaning products rattle. You really came. Her whisper was half disbelief and half awe. Why? Why had he bothered to even remember her? She was fake. Izuku's grin softened into a small smile. Of course I did. I promised, right? He remembered the talk with his friends the day before. A small act of kindness, it was no trouble, so there's no reason I shouldn't have come, right? You. Why? Why? Such a simple question with so much grief behind it. No one else came. When someone did, she hurt them like nothing else could. There was no reason for any of it, no reason for her. Because that's what heroes do. They do what's right when it's hard, they do what's right when it's easy, and they do what's right when they can. Izuku spoke without doubts this time, finally finding an answer that rang true to him. Because they care, and I do too. Namine felt her death grip on her sketchbook slack. He cared. The pang on her chest might have been fake, but she decided that letting the lie slide once would be fine. Thank you. To say Izuku beamed wouldn't do it justice, but the boy's sunny disposition only made the broom extended her way seem less like an offer and more like a challenge. You can thank me after we finish tidying this place up. The blonde tilted her head to the side. What? You can't be living in a moldy place like this. Just getting from the door to here is a safety hazard. Izuku's smile slightly faltered before he doubled down on it. He would have time to ask hard questions later. I'll help clean up, come on. Having the broom all but shoved into her hand, Namine grabbed it and stood there like a deer in headlights. She didn't know how to react, and that was so overwhelming to her that she simply froze. Seeing the girl like that made Izuku reconsider his approach. Energy wasn't working, so gentleness it was. You don't need to be scared, I'll help. Let's start small. If you want to say anything, I'm all ears. Without realizing it, his voice became the soft whisper Izuku used to coach Eri when she got scared. Slowly, Namine relaxed. Okay, what do we do now? Let's swipe all the glass shards in one place so I can throw them out later. Just be careful to not end up getting cut, K? She nodded slowly, unsurely, but still willing to trust him, K. Izuku smiled, ignoring how his chest squeezed in his chest as if in a vice. She looked just like it was the first time Izuku had seen someone like that, but it was fine, he could adapt. Changing his tactics to gently guide Namine through the process of cleaning, he kept his voice soft and low while explaining, basically everything to her from start to finish. From how to properly hold the broom, to how to swipe without exaggerated arm motions that would leave your arms destroyed later. Like Namine's first attempts. Patience. That was the name of the game. Every step of the process was another trial of patience where Izuku explained, demonstrated, and then corrected Namine's form until she got it right. Picking the shards, putting them on a bag, tying it, and so on and so forth. Then they got rid of the cobwebs, moved the broken displays to a corner, gathered the pieces, and piled them in a corner. They swiped the windows with clean rags, opened them to get the air flowing, and aired all the cloths, rugs, and curtains. To finish it, they dusted the old furniture enough to make it usable again. By the end of it, the old mansion seemed livable. Not a dilapidated building but only an old house that needed some renovations. One could even stretch things a bit and call it a good home. Izuku would err on the side of caution until he got the full picture. If push came to shove, he had a struggle bat hidden among the cleaning supplies he brought. See? It's a whole different place now that it got some care. Izuku chuckled at Namine's wide-eyed awe. She looked around as if not believing it was the same place, and Izuku found that amusing to no end. It's brighter. Proper ventilation does wonders to old houses. Just remember to close the windows when it starts to get dark and open them all up in the morning. The mansion was walled off, but it was still in the middle of the forest. Izuku didn't want to imagine the things that could get in while it was dark outside. Things like dusks. Or worse. He shook the thought off. Here, I have a little something for us as a reward. What? Namine watched him walk to the side of the entrance hall, where the things he brought were sitting in a corner, and grab a bag. Reward what? A job well done? Izuku pulled 2 popsicles and grinned at Namine. There's nothing better than sea salt ice cream after a hard day's work. Like a child seeing something new for the first time, Namine examined the foreign object with wonder before asking, "Why did you bring that?" "I promised to bring you some ice cream yesterday, right?" Izuku offered her 1 stick with a smile on his face. "I kept my word." She gently picked up the stick, her fingers brushing Izuku's. His scars carried the memories of battle, of reaching out to someone in pain. Namine pulled back as if shocked, her pulse loud in her eardrums. No, she didn't want to hurt anyone else. While she recoiled, Izuku stepped closer, his face marred with concern. "Hey, what's the matter?" His voice was soft, almost a whisper, with worry filling it but restraining him from acting in fear of hurting her. "Bzzz," the other voice that sounded was none so kind. "I could ask the same thing." Izuku put himself between Namine and the new person, popsicles discarded and fists raised. Bees. He didn't know where the new guy came from, but his gut told Izuku that he was in for a fight. "What's the meaning of this? Which?" The citrine eye glared through the red wraps tied to the man's head and fastened with intersecting belts. An unsettling wind blew through his long red cape. It had a quadrate cross cut taken out at the chest, the edges yellow and exposing some type of symbol in white on the man's black shirt. His legs were covered by a long, black cloth lined with yellow, which itself had several brown straps pinned onto the front, and a yellow sash on his waist had 3 brown pouches fastened to it. The man's whole appearance was bizarre, clashing with the world around him as if he did not belong. Just like Namine hid behind him, her whimper of fear sending a wave of boiling heat through Izuku's veins. Forget diplomacy, that guy wasn't getting to her without going through Izuku first. "I asked you a question." "Shut up." Izuku felt his heart pound along his foot on the floor. He stomped and all but growled at the man. "Who do you think you are to treat Namine like this?" The stranger shook his head, another helpless boy enthralled. "What a pity." Soft cracks sounded. Izuku's balled fists were so tightly clasped that his knuckles popped from the force. The heat in his scars got hotter. "Bzzz. You should have not come back here." The man's voice was grave, like a teacher reprimanding an unruly student. "What happens in this mansion does not concern you." His scars flared. "Stop talking like you know everything. I'm not walking away and leaving Namine here alone with you." The man was unperturbed by his outburst. "Oh, but that is just the thing. Bzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz vanished under his feet, and that cost him. He lurched down, his shoes sinking into a black puddle that wasn't there a moment before. The boy cried out and struggled, trying to pull himself free from the ethereal pitch that slowly swallowed him. No matter how hard he fought, the yawning abyss only devoured him more and more. Stop! Namine's yell startled even herself. She was shaking, looking at the scene before her in fear with tears in her eyes. Why did everyone who came for her have to suffer? Consider this a lesson. Your meddling will only bring forth disaster. Focus on your tasks and cease your pointless actions. The disinterested voice matched how the man watched Izuku being dragged under with indifference. Two frantic green eyes locked with a single orange one before they too were consumed. Namine fell to her knees. Why? 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 Why did she even keep clinging to a life of hurt? Stop running away. You're stronger than this. Are you truly going to give up now? After everything? Get up. Get up and fight. Fight, NNH exclamation mark. Izuku opened his eyes in a dark void. His everything burned. Veins, muscles, bones, tendons, his whole body burned. It burned with the need to fight. He would never leave someone down like that. He would never ignore a cry for help like that. Izuku would never leave a person to their fate like that. The darkness tried to devour him whole, so Izuku fought back. Even while floating in an endless dark sea, he swam, he crawled, he kept fighting. Bzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz, even if he had to put his life on the line. Bzzzzzzzzzzzzz, even if it looked hopeless. Bzzz, Izuku would never stop fighting. Ba dump, ba dump, ba dump, ba dump. His heart was smashing against his ribs. His blood felt like lava under his skin. His everything burned. Izuku saw light. Not from up where he sunk, not from a distant source away, but from himself. Just as the heat became scorching, his world saw light. Namine had big fat tears running down her cheeks, her chest reeked with choked sobs, the well of darkness before her having consumed all her will along with Izuku. Why? The man looked down coldly at the crying girl, not a smudge of sympathy to be seen in his eye. He was only getting in the way. Return to your task. The boy will be too spooked to come back, so do not bother waiting for another to bewitch. Why? Did I not make myself clear? Namine curled into herself, her tears never stopping. Why? Why can't I have one moment that's not marked with pain? The stranger scoffed, spare me the theatrics. It is not like you can feel anything to begin with. He waved dismissively as if the suffering before him was unimportant. Because to him, it was. Go already, we are done here. At that moment, as if in spite of those words, it happened. From the pool of darkness still lingering, longer than it should, than what could be possible, a ray of light broke out. The viridian beam was followed by another, and another, and another. And then, a hand broke through the inky substance. Clad in green arcs of power that leapt mightily over the sun-touched skin, the arm reached forward, falling back into the darkness. The very ends of the fingertips landed on solid ground. With an exertion of force inhuman in sight of the leverage used, he heaved. Izuku burst through the darkness like a dolphin shooting out of the water, his whole body glad in arcs of glowing energy. He rose almost to the ceiling, gravity unable to claim him until he crossed the second-floor walkways. With a flip, the boy bore down on the cruel man who attacked him. Izuku cupped his right fist, the power overflowing through his body concentrating on it. He fell like a lightning bolt rushing down to earth with all the might of a force of nature. The strange man had his eyes wide and composure broken, but even while shocked he still had the wherewithal to escape. In a blink, his body was covered by darkness, and then both it and him were gone, vanishing into thin air. And just in time, for a fraction of a second later, Izuku descended on the spot he occupied like a vengeful god. Smash! The glowing fist hit the floor with a kiloton of force, cratering the ground and making the whole mansion shake. On the second floor where he reappeared, the mysterious man lost his footing as the building trembled and dust escaped from the worn ceiling. He grabbed the banisters to steady himself and glared down. Izuku met the orange orb with two glowing green ones. He pulled his fist from the ground, it was buried into the middle of his forearm and bared his teeth. Nothing would make him happier than to go up there and do the same with that villain. But Izuku had his priorities straight even when angered beyond belief. Spinning on his heels, he bolted away. In the same movement he used to grab Eri every day during his race against Hainer, Izuku picked Namine up and ran. There was no awkwardness from picking a girl in a princess carry, no fear of turning his back to an enemy, no confusion about what the hell just happened. Izuku had only one goal in mind that consumed his whole being. He had to get Namine to safety. He had to. So he ran. In a blink, Izuku was already in the forest. In the next his overcharged legs sprung and he leapt several stories up. Red shoes landed on branches for all but a moment before pushing away with impossible strength. Izuku's form was nothing but a green blur as he went from tree to tree like a demented pinball. Reaching the town, instead of landing and using the hole in the wall, Izuku pushed even more power to his legs. They sparked wildly as with a single bound, Izuku crossed over the wall. He didn't even have time to enjoy the view as another kick had both Namine and him soaring over Twilight Town's skyline. The girl had no such problem. She watched while disbelief, awe, shock, confusion, and many other emotions that felt alien to her flashed through her eyes unknowingly. Her gaze took in the lightning-clad Izuku, the golden skies in the background contrasting against the viridescent over his form. Why? Why was he doing that? Why was he taking her away? Why was he fighting for her? Why did he care? Oh, That was why. A hero did what was right because he cared. With more physics-defying leaps, Izuku hopped through the sea of rooftops. Each contact of his shoes with tiles had the duo crossing multiple streets. Quicker and quicker they approached their destination. At the end of their trip through the skyline, Izuku dropped down to the street level without caring for the several-meter fall. He landed hard on the ground, his shoes leaving cracks on the brickwork but not stopping the boy for a second. Izuku dashed down the back streets faster than any of the town's trains, taking turns and sharp corners without a problem. Finally, he spotted his goal. Pushing through a wire door and an old hanged tarp, they arrived at the usual spot where Izuku and his friends hung out. It was a small space under a set of train tracks where some old machinery pumped water and what had you to that section of the town. The teens had filled the space with old stuff no one wanted but they still could use, like a set of darts, a folding ping-pong table, and even an old sofa. That was Izuku's destination. Without fanfare, he put down Namine on one side of the peeling couch and crumbled on the other. For a small eternity, they just sat there. Namine tried to process what happened while Izuku struggled to catch his breath, neither being completely successful. Ever so slowly the energy cloaking Izuku died out, the last remnants of green lightning fading between his fingers. His pounding heart slowed down to a comfortable beat as the searing heat retreated into it and went back to slumber. His scars felt hot. Not boiling, but pleasantly warm. Izuku brought up his right hand and clenched his slightly crooked fingers, relaxing them slowly before clenching his hand close. That power. Namine put her hands over his one. Their eyes met and Izuku saw in the blue orbs that she was lost. More than that, she was afraid. The heat lingered. Hey, it's okay now, you're safe. While she looked at him with unbreakable focus, she didn't seem to hear him. Her mind seemed away, trying to connect with her body but failing. Izuku turned to her fully and held her hands. Look at me. Namine. You're safe. No one can hurt you now. Aye, she croaked, not fully crying but not far from it. I don't want to suffer like that anymore. You won't. I don't know who that guy was or what's his deal, but if he tries coming for you then I'll beat him to a pulp. Izuku wasn't one to think violence was the only option, but something about that man made the heat in his scars flare like the sun. But I have to come back. The words were forced out, her grip on his hands tightening. She didn't want to, but that didn't matter. Namine had to come back. She had to make things right. No, you don't. Izuku was so glad he managed to hold back a shout. The last thing he wanted was to distress her further. That guy was hurting you. There's no reason for you to come back to him. But there is. The pain was fake. It had to be. If Namine believed it true for a second it would become unbearable. Someone came for me before. He tried to help me, but I hurt him. Namine sobbed, unable to finish. It was fake, fake, fake. A scarred and warm hand landed on her shoulder. Did you mean to? She sniffed and jerkily shook her head. Did you want to? Another shake. Then it's not your fault. Izuku held her gaze firmly when it shot up to him. He reached out with his sincerity, with soft eyes and gentle words. It was an accident, a mistake. It happens, and I'm sure whoever you got hurt thinks the same if they tried to help in the first place. Was it? Was that how it worked? Would it be all right if, either way, she had to make things right? I have to help him. I have to finish repairing the damage I did to him, even if it meant going back. Izuku had too many questions and very little information. Still, he wasn't giving up the argument without even trying. Was that what you're doing in that mansion, helping this person you hurt? She nodded slowly. Okay, that complicated things. How? A stab of fear. Fake. It had to be. I was putting his memories back together. Was that her key focus? Izuku could ask what she meant by that later. And you have to be there to do that. Namine opened her mouth to respond, then stopped. Slowly she closed it shut while staring into Izuku's eyes as if searching for the answer in them herself. I don't know. That was something. Can you test it? She turned from side to side, searching for something. Do you have anything I can use to draw? From seemingly nowhere, Izuku produced a notebook and a pen. Here, use this. Confused but not questioning how he got the objects, Namine accepted them and tried to use her power. Even a fraction of it. Anything so she didn't have to come back there. A sketch of a dark room with a strange machine quickly formed over the pages. She felt the connection there, the chain of many memories she created tugging at the original she rescued. Tears fell on the page and broke the spell. Namine couldn't even piece together why she was crying now. She only knew one thing: I don't have to go back. Looks like it. Izuku slowly patted her back and left the girl to ride out the feelings washing over her. They may not have known each other for long, but it was painfully clear Namine wasn't very good at dealing with her emotions. I don't have to go back, she repeated. Nope. I don't have to go back. Where do I go then? Namine looked at Izuku, as if certain he would know. Izuku had absolutely no idea what to say to that. Okay, think. Going through the list of people he knew that could both house Namine and protect her from that guy who attacked him left Izuku with a surprisingly short list. There was the Rossfields, but Izuku was damned if he ever put his friends in danger like that. Which left himself. His house wasn't all that large, but it had enough space for another person, and in case the man came after Namine. His scars burned. That was a horrible idea, but Izuku's whole thing was making horrible ideas work. He was a survivor, very adaptable person. Well, if you have nowhere else to go, you can stay at my place. It's not nearly as big as that old mansion, but it's a lot cleaner. Namine tilted her head to the side, like a curious kitten. You have your own house? Yeah. How did you get it? Namine felt the moment the hand on her back heated up and Izuku's eyes closed with a memory. One he quickly drowned down until he forgot about it himself. Before any of the two could find their footing, the tarp was snapped aside. And we are. Hainer and Eri, who had hitched a piggyback ride on his back, stopped at the entrance with wide eyes, interrupting something? What are you two doing here? Izuku might have lost track of time slightly, what with the whole getting sucked into a dark pit thing, but he was sure Eri still should be with Jill having her extra lessons. Hainer got so blindsided by the whole situation he ended up answering, I picked up Eri and ran here. Her classes weren't done yet, they weren't? The girl shook her head, no. Then why didn't you say so? You didn't let me. Izuku groaned. That's why I only have responsible people in unicorn duty. Hey, I am responsible. No, you really aren't. Hey, no, he's absolutely right. Olette also slipped past the tarp with a grin on her face, happy to take the chance to tease her friends, especially when the friend was Hainer. She saw the other person watching the scene and blinked. Who's she? So that's what happened. Namine didn't dare to look up at the blonde boy sitting on a piece of machinery, knowing his eyes were on her. She felt the tiny hand holding hers squeezing, a feeling of empathy rising alongside a memory. Namine pulled back before she could truly see it. The small hand grabbed hers again. Risking a glance showed ruby-red eyes looking up at her with understanding. Eri scooted closer and leaned on Namine's side, trying to provide the older girl some comfort with her presence. Who would do something like that? Olette, the third occupant of the worn and cramped couch, watched the silent and scared girl her friend apparently rescued receiving moral support from the youngest of their group. I don't know. But if he tries something. Izuku trailed off, now perched on a piece of the town's infrastructure himself. His grip on a pipe coming out of the machine was so strong the poor piece of metal groaned under the strain. We'll be on the lookout for the guy. Pence placated his incensed friend, or tried to at least. But more important than that, what now? Namine felt all eyes on her, and she shrunk under their gazes. Every time she had eyes on her, it didn't end well. I have a plan. Izuku pushed away from his perch and landed next to Namine. She calmed down a little, feeling him close. A funny smell hit her nose, the same one the lightning that covered him early had. She didn't like the smell of lightning before, but now it only brought the memory of the viridescent arcs to her mind. Better than the yellow ones, and the memories of pain. When you say a plan, the blonde boy also stood and Namine leaned closer to Izuku, grasping Eri's hand a little tighter. I mean, half an idea that someone could consider a plan if they squint and tilt their head a bit. Namine thought that wasn't a good start of a plan. She kept quiet though. No need to say things other people didn't want to hear. Surprisingly, the blonde teen thought the same. That's a pretty crap way to start a plan, but go on. Namine risked a look, seeing the blonde with his arms crossed and staring at Izuku with a blank face. She saw how his eye twitched, almost landing on her before he forced them back. He was avoiding her. No, he was. Giving her space? Namine's eyes darted to the other teens, and she saw they all had put their focus on Izuku and were giving her more room while keeping Namine on the edge of their sights. The only one who did differently was Eri, who was half draped on Namine's side and still holding her hand. Izuku clapped softly, getting Namine's attention but not startling her. Who do we know that has the room for one more person? Clive? Who else? You're kidding. Who we also know can handle things if a fight breaks out? Oh crap, you're serious. Hainer, let's be honest here, we don't have any other options. Izuku started to list on his fingers. You guys' parents won't just take her in without asking questions. Even if I asked for Clive to let her stay in his house, that would put him and the others in danger. And what about you? Pencer supported Hainer on that one. And what about Eri? She'll be in danger too. It's fine. Eri was the one answer, making the teens stumble on their train of thought. If the bad man comes, I know Izuku won't let him hurt anyone. Namine felt another flash of memory. Something was boiling under the surface that Eri purposefully was keeping from breaking through. Unlike Izuku, she didn't drown it, but she also kept it back, hidden. Those red eyes fluttered to Izuku before looking away again. She knew something. Stop. Namine pushed questions and inquiries away, distancing her mind from the intrusive thoughts. No one would answer. She didn't need to know. It was already too much that they wanted to help her. I can stay somewhere else. Her voice startled everybody. It was the first she spoke since the others showed up, proof of how ragged her voice sounded. No, she turned to Izuku, seeing his right hand bald. You have nowhere else to go because you're never going to that mansion again. Sorry, but you're staying with us until... Until? Izuku shot Hainer a glare. I don't know. Okay. We need a long-term solution, yes, but while we don't have one, this is the best I can come up with. Whoa. Okay. I get that, but you can't just go through with this half-baked. Hainer glanced at his other friends. The three of them shared the same quiet resolve. I'll grab some old stuff from my place. Blankets, pillows, towels, the works. I have some clothes that should fit you. They're not brand new, but they should do. Olette nodded to herself, also determined to help. The guy in the grocery store owes me a favor. I'll tell him you're housing one more person and ask for a discount when you buy there. Everybody shot Pence weird looks at that. The portly boy put his hand up and shook his head. Don't ask. Now I really want to ask. No, you don't. Either way, that should keep you afloat for a while. With all of them helping, Izuku shouldn't feel the strain on his savings. That was great, as taking care of another person would be hard even for an adult. Imagine a teen who had no steady job or fount of income. Namine glanced at Izuku just in time to see him strangle another memory until every trace of it vanished from his mind. No, don't ask, just like Pence said. She really wanted to though, just like Izuku said. So it's settled. Namine didn't know people could live above shops. Izuku brought Eri and her to his house after the discussion on the group's little hideout, showing Namine the way to get to it was by going to a side door on a hardware shop, where a flight of stairs brought them to a second floor. The space was not a part of the store but a small apartment. Make yourself at home, he said after opening the door to her, the old slab of wood creaking along the hinges. Still holding her hand, Eri pulled Namine inside. Come on in. It was honestly overwhelming to see the house. Namine realized it was minuscule compared to the mansion, but it was a real home. From the small living room with the loveseat and armchair with a coffee table in the middle. The kitchen was separated from it by a counter. The ajar door led to the bedroom. The bathroom door had a homemade sign saying, "Occupied, please wait." It all made the place feel loved. It's not much, but we can make it work. Izuku passed them and went to the kitchen, planning on making them some tea. I was planning on getting a TV, but another bed shouldn't be too out of its price range. Oh, and with the things the guys will lend us you should be fine for a while. What about toiletries? Eri asked Izuku, making the boy stop his movements to do some quick mental math. I still have an extra toothbrush inside the box. And we share the paste already, so one more isn't a problem. It shouldn't at least. Do you think you'll need anything else, Namine? She froze again. Going from having nothing to suddenly having so much overwhelmed Namine. How did people keep track of so many things? Where would she put them? What if she broke something by accident? What if? A pair of arms circled her. Eri stood on the very tip of her toes to hug Namine's midriff. It's okay. If it's too much, we can stop and wait until it isn't anymore. It stopped being too much with time. That's how people got used to things. Okay, she could try. Namine stood stock-still for a minute, and another one. After a while, her chest stopped hurting and her breath normalized. Her hands were still shaking and her forehead was still sweaty, but it was better already. Partly because Eri was still holding her. Did it also help? Maybe she could try too. Deciding that she would, Namine slowly returned the hug. Eri looked up and smiled. It's okay. Izuku, who was halfway to jumping over the counter, dropped back to the floor and sighed in relief. He was glad Eri could empathize, was so good at calming distressed people. Maybe she would have a future as a doctor or a therapist. After making sure Namine was all better, the little unicorn brought the older girl to the love seat. Let's sit down. I can show you my drawings. Do you want to see? She did. Namine never saw another person's art before, and that made her want to see how different it was from her own. Was curiosity a feeling? Was it fake too? But, did it change anything if it was? Yes. Namine's answer made Eri smile. Was that the right answer then? While she questioned her actions, Eri brought from the bedroom a bunch of sketchbooks and crayons. From behind the kitchen counter, Izuku watched with a smile as Namine and Eri chatted about their art, and then started drawing. He quietly stepped closer and put down the cups filled with steaming tea. The soft click of porcelain made Namine look up from the page she had been sketching the start of a scene through the last few minutes. Izuku smiled at her and sat on the armchair, giving space to the two girls who were on the floor by the table. Namine once again had a sensation she couldn't identify. The rug under her, the warm but not hot temperature, and the people beside her. She felt comfortable, at peace. Namine couldn't put a word to it, but maybe it wasn't truly a feeling. Would that make it true then? Her hands moved to hold the cup, feeling the warmth. It was steaming. Was it okay to drink something that hot? Her answer came in the form of Eri loudly blowing on her own tea. A glance at Izuku showed he was doing the same, just quietly. Taking a page from his book, she brought the drink closer to her lips and blew on it. Just that was enough for the rich smell to hit her nose. It was, not only different, but good. It smelled good, like flowers but not quite. Izuku and Eri chuckled at how Namine closed her eyes and breathed in the fragrance of her tea as if it was a profound experience that entranced her. That broke the blonde from her reverie, making her focus back on what she was doing. Testing the waters first, she poked the tip of her tongue and tried out the tea. She barely registered the taste, but the heat was now manageable, so Namine took a proper sip. It tasted, It tasted. She hadn't had anything besides water to drink before, so actually tasting a liquid was a first. And it tasted good, a little sweet, and refreshing, and it clung to her tongue even after she swallowed the tea. Do you like it? I do. Namine once more had to take a minute to let the concept settle. She liked something she got to drink. It was given to her, no strings attached. It was the first time she experienced something completely new and fully enjoyed it. All that was a lot. But more than that, the thought of being able to go through such a thing thanks to another person was. Namine also couldn't name it. Thank you. No need to thank me. I wouldn't be a proper host if I didn't show you hospitality, right? Izuku grinned at her, making Namine open a small smile herself. And you'll be living with us from now on, so that's doubly so. Yeah, we have to show you're welcome to your new home. That's a big part of moving somewhere else. Eri nodded at herself, glad Jill taught her that too. She got up and made her way to Namine. Welcome home. Now that she was sitting on the floor, Eri's hug went over her shoulders and around her neck. It wasn't like the ones she had given before, but it had the same something Namine didn't know how to call that made her warm inside. I'm home. You got everything? Namine nodded to Izuku, showing the towel and clothes in her hands. The gang had stopped by to drop off the items they promised. They chatted for a while, but not long after the others had to leave. It was getting late and they all wanted to rest after a day with high emotions like the one they had. Izuku and Eri were no different, with the first telling the little girl to take a bath while he put together their dinner. That led to the extremely awkward conversation of how Namine didn't have a proper opportunity to clean herself fully ever, really. So that's why she was now in the bathroom with Izuku explaining how the tub worked. That tab has hot water, the other one is cold. You have to control how much water each gets in the tub until the temperature is good. He hit the side of the hot water one. This one is kinda stuck, so knock on the side to loosen it before trying to open it. Okay. Was it supposed to be like that? Namine's only experience with taking care of her hygiene was washing her face and hands, so she had no base to comment. Maybe it was just something that tub in particular did. There's soap and shampoo on there. He pointed at a little sack tied to a nail on the wall. Just remember to put it back after you use it. Okay. Then, well, I think that's it. He gave her a last nod before turning away. I'll leave you to it. The sigh of his back, of him walking away, sent a white-hot stab of panic through her. Namine only realized she had snatched the back of his jacket in a death grip. Whoa. Hey. What's wrong? What was wrong? Namine couldn't figure out what made her short of breath and unable to speak. She only knew she was scared. Fear was something she knew well. Was it fake too? Probably. Still, it helped her stay alive. Izuku slowly took her hand in his and gently pried her finger open. Now free, he faced her properly and asked again, what's wrong? I don't. Hey, it's okay. Take a deep breath. I'm here. Everything will be okay. I am here. The blaze of a memory that was harshly and brutally snuffed shocked Namine out of her panic attack. Or the start of one at least. Her chest hurt. Her blood pumping was too loud in her ears. Her hands were shaking and sweaty, but Izuku still held them gently. I don't want to be alone anymore. Izuku's eyes softened even more. You're not alone. I'm here. Eri too. And the others also will have your back. He gave her hand a soft squeeze, trying to reassure her not only with words. The contact helped. Namine was still scared it was all a dream, but she couldn't refuse their kindness. Not after so long not receiving any. Okay. Remember, you're home now. You're safe here, I promise. That was the second promise someone made to her. Maybe Namine could believe it too. Okay. She let go. Izuku watched her for a moment longer before leaving with a last smile sent her way. The door clicked and she could swear the air was sucked out of the room. Struggling to keep her breath steady, she went for the bathtub. Her hand had to clutch to the tub's edges to keep her steady. She wasn't alone. She wasn't alone. She wasn't alone. Please, tell her she wasn't alone. As if her wish was granted, a loud thud sounded from the living room followed by Izuku shouting, Eri. What did I say about leaving your crayons on the floor? Her loud response of, sorry, are you okay? Came and Namine finally was able to breathe again. They were there. They were fine. Not counting Izuku's probable fall thanks to a sneaky crayon. Before whatever it was that squeezed her lungs and made her chest ache come back, Namine opened the tabs and left the tub slowly filling. She got out of her dress and put her sandals aside, noticing they had their soles scuffed. Did that happen when Izuku faced Diz? His attack destroyed the mansion's entry hall almost completely, so it wouldn't be a surprise if the upturned floor caused some damage to her flimsy footwear. He was so strong, and fast, and bright. Why? Why was he like that? Why could he do something like that? No questions. Questions only made people angry at those who asked them. The hot water tab made a funny noise, thankfully alerting Namine that the bathtub was full. She stopped the streams and hopped in. It was so good. The water was warm and nice, and the porcelain wasn't hard against her skin. Was that why people took baths? If they all were like that, then she would find any excuse to have one, even if she wasn't dirty. The noise from outside stopped, making the suffocating pressure come back. That made Namine scramble to clean herself and get back out. The sack was at arm's length, so she put her hand inside and pulled out a rubber duck. It was yellow, and the beak was orange, and it had big black and white eyes. Her hand clenched on reflex, making the duck let out a loud squeak. Namine was startled by the sound and dropped the toy, then watched in fascination as it floated on the water, calmly bobbing from side to side. The drumming in her ears subsided little by little. The nice comfort of the water and the presence of something else along with her helped Namine's nerves settle. She brought her legs closer and hugged her knees, curling into a ball and maintaining her nose barely above the water, but not for long as she sunk further and got at the merry duck's eye level. Namine let the air out from her nose, slowly blowing air bubbles and emptying her lungs. When they started to burn, she leaned back and took a deep breath. It stopped hurting. Just like Eri said, waiting until it wasn't too much anymore was okay. So for a long moment, Namine just sat on the tub, with a rubber duck as her only company, and waited until everything wasn't too much anymore. It took a while, and the water got a little colder, but Namine managed to be fine enough to move and take her bath properly. The soap made bubbles. The shampoo smelled nice. The duck remained by her side like a staunch guardian against the crushing loneliness. Then she was done. The realization that she could go back to the others, even if they were just outside the door, gave Namine a rush of energy. She toweled herself and put on the clothes Olette gave her, a blue shirt with white butterflies on the hem that reached past her waist and gray cotton pants that preserved some of the bath's warmth. She put on her sandals and prayed they wouldn't give out on her, then grabbed her things and rushed out. That almost made her crash on Izuku, if he hadn't somehow caught her by the shoulders. "Whoa. You okay? Why the rush? Something happened?" Namine looked into his eyes, then to the bathroom, and back. "I found the rubber duck." She didn't know why that was the first thing she said. Maybe the duck deserved recognition for helping her. Izuku blinked once, twice. "You like rubber ducks?" "Did she?" "No, yes. It was fake. She didn't want to be alone." Namine nodded. "Well, it's Aries, but I think she'll be fine with you using it too." As if to prove his point, the unicorn poked her head out of the bedroom. Admiral Quack is always happy to make new friends. Izuku let her go and stifled a laugh. "See?" He gave her a look, something she couldn't name passing through his eyes. "If you want something, just tell me. Even if it's silly or hard." He patted his chest. "My specialty is making silly plans happen and getting through hard situations, so I'll make things work out." Why did he care so much? Oh, that's right. Izuku was a hero, her hero. It was dark now. The town had quieted down until it seemed the world itself was asleep. That meant they should go to sleep too, or at least that was what Namine got from context clues. She made herself comfortable in the love seat, which was a great improvement compared to her room's chairs. Or her old room, as Namine didn't plan on returning to it. It was still hard to accept she was free from the oppressive white walls. "Hey, no falling asleep on the couch now." Izuku poked her shoulder, startling her slightly. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. Let's get you to bed, okay?" "I have a bed." "Well, yesn't. I usually bunk up with Eri, but she's fine with sharing with you." He jabbed a thumb to the bedroom. "You two get the bed while I take my armchair." Izuku made a show of pulling a lever on the side and showing the backrest lowered to be more or less horizontal. "See? It's pretty cool." Yes, it was cool. Namine didn't know armchairs could do that. "Are you sure, though? It's your bed, and I'm used to sleeping on chairs." She said something wrong. Izuku took in a sharp breath through gritted teeth and his eyes turned steely. He was angry. "That guy didn't even give you a bed to sleep in?" The words were almost growled out. Namine lowered her eyes and shook her head. She hadn't watched his reaction, but she saw Izuku's clenched hands. Taking a deep breath, he moved closer and put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's fine, you're in a good place now. Come on, let's get you tucked in." Risking a glance up, she saw how he smiled. It made her chest ache, but in a good way. Namine experienced a lot of good things that day, and it looked like she would finish it by experiencing one more. Tucked in the bed alongside Eri, she got to enjoy the warm comforter, the soft bed, and the fluffy pillows. It was almost like they were lying on a cloud. The bed was big enough for Namine and Eri to be side by side with a little bit of space between them, but Eri didn't seem to mind. She actually scooted closer so their arms were touching. It was nice. "I'll be right outside. If you two need anything, just call." Izuku reminded the two he was still there, having finished grabbing things from the wardrobe, a blanket and another pillow. His hands were clenched tight. "Good night." "Nighty-night." "Good night." For the first time, Namine felt her night would truly be a good one. She should have known better. Namine awoke in a cold sweat, her hands clamped on the comforter and a cry almost leaving her lips. It died in her throat before she could awaken anyone. Her insides hurt and she felt clammy, and it was dark and... No. Eri woke with a yell, sitting ramrod and crying. It was the loud and messy type of crying. Namine lost the fight against the tears and started crying too. She should have known better than to hope for something good. Eri. To say Izuku burst through the door wouldn't do it justice. The poor thing got cracked from the strength he used to throw it open. His eyes zeroed on them and he was by the bed in a blink. Hey, it's okay. Everything is fine now. I'm here. Everything will be okay." He kept speaking reassurances again and again. Slowly, gently bringing Eri into a hug and letting her cry on his chest. They locked eyes, and Namine also lost the battle against the sobs wrecking her frame. He understood. He felt something hurting but couldn't know what it was, like her. He cared, that was why he opened one arm, beckoning her silently. Namine copied Eri and crashed on him while crying with everything she had. "It's going to be okay. I'm here." It hurt him to say that. It made them feel better to hear that. He hurt himself to make others feel better. Why? Everyone knew why. Because he cared. The next time Namine woke up, she experienced a whole lot of new things at once. First, she was fine, great even, waking up. No nightmares, no pain, no severe discomfort, nothing. Nothing bad, at least. She had a lot of good things going on that would take a bit to parse through. Second, she didn't remember falling asleep, but it was easy enough to guess how it happened. Eri was buried on her, glomping Namine with arms and legs, looking so peaceful it was impossible to imagine she had cried herself to sleep the night before. They were also both being held by Izuku, who must also have fallen asleep at some point and was under the two of them in a position that looked like the definition of uncomfortable. Even then, his face was the picture of serenity. It was still kinda dark, so Namine woke early. That was okay, she didn't like sleeping very much. Now that she got her bearings, it was time to figure out what to make of all that. Would it even matter, if it all was fake? But again, it wouldn't hurt anyone. Some white lies were fine as long as no one got worse for it, right? Would it be so bad to play pretend, even if for a little bit? No, it wouldn't. Namine deserved at least that much. So she felt. Felt like people with a heart did. It was a lie, but it was hers. How did she feel about waking up in a pile with Eri and Izuku, all bundled together? It was warm, with their body heat making up for the discarded comforter. And it was soft. Eri had baby fat that made her nice to hug, and Izuku was sturdy but his muscles weren't hard with him relaxed like that. And it was safe because they were all together and the nightmares kept away from their bundle of comfort. Strength in numbers seemed to apply to everything. Namine realized that now that there were people she could count on, it was nice knowing it. There was just one last thing she wanted to figure out. Why was the coarse sensation rubbing against her arm? Finding the source, she saw Izuku's fingers. She traced them with the tip of her own finger. The fingers of his right hand were a little croaked and discolored compared to his other hand, and there were a bunch of scars marking them. Each scar had a memory carved bone deep into it. Namine almost reached out to them but pulled away at the last second. She had good things now, there was no need to lose them by pushing her luck. Eri rubbed her head on Namine's shirt, which caused a slight stab of pain where her horn poked her. Curiosity picked. Namine switched to tracing the horn's form. It was a pale yellow color that Namine liked, and smooth, not smooth like porcelain, but also not like teeth. Was that what bones felt like? Was it even a bone? It also had many memories etched on the almost imperceptible segment lines. They were tightly held by lock and key, hidden away to not get in the way of anyone. Namine could relate, so she left them alone. It still was nice, so she kept alternating between Eri's horn and Izuku's scars. Those sensations were new to her, and the feelings, what feelings did she have over them? She liked it. Happiness. Some curiosity. Appreciation, maybe. Feelings were complicated. Namine just decided that she felt good things about it and left it at that. Izuku was slowly being roused back to consciousness by a gentle touch on his scars. They felt warmer. Something was writhing under them, wriggling and crawling and digging. The alarm clock rang, the tiny hammer smashing frantically against the metal plates and making an awful sound that could wake even the dead. Izuku jolted, starting to move before having fully awakened. He threw himself to the edge of the bed and reached out to slap the button and shut up the infernal ringing. Before he could relax, gravity reminded the boy it indeed existed. Whoa! Izuku slipped from the edge, dragging his unfortunate passengers with him to crash on the floor. The three yelped and cried out and ended up in a pile on the ground. Ouch! Why did you do that? It's Saturday, Eri grumbled and tried to bury herself in Namine, not feeling like waking up still. Izuku opened to answer how they always had school on Saturday in Ya. He messed up and forgot when he noticed a third person was composing the pile. Glancing at Namine, who was squished against his side, Izuku went red on the cheeks and chuckled awkwardly, sorry. What for? I think I fell asleep. We did too. It was nice. It was? Namine nodded, a smile on her face. Has Izuku ever seen her smile? He liked it. She should have more reasons to smile. It was the best night of sleep I ever had. I feel like that's not a tall bar to climb. Maybe, but I'm still happy you did. Izuku laughed, a startled and genuine thing that made his chest light and his scars warm. It was great, knowing other people appreciated how he cared. Eri glanced at Izuku and smiled. It was nice seeing him happy. If we're not going back to sleep, can we get breakfast? Pancakes? Pancakes? They both turned their eyes to Namine. The girl blinked, twice, then shrugged the best she could in her position. Pancakes. The boy rose to his feet, a grin on his face, and offered Namine a hand. Come on, it will only be a true welcome home when you have some homemade pancakes. Home. Namine hugged Eri tightly, accepted Izuku's hand, and beamed. I'm home. Namine didn't know people could be so energetic in the mornings. To be fair, her contact with other people had been minimal. More than that, Namine herself always felt sluggish most of the time. The days dragged out, and she never got much sleep, so when she woke Namine usually was more tired than when she fell asleep. Izuku wasn't like that. From the get-go, he was rushing from one thing to another, and Eri wasn't far behind. Namine also found she had more liveliness that morning than she had in. She couldn't even remember if she ever felt that, awake. It took a moment for her to process that fact, and when she did, Izuku was already in the kitchen preparing something and Eri was rushing Namine to the bathroom to freshen up. The door closed with a soft click, and once more there was that suffocating something that seemed to press on her from all sides. Namine rushed to finish her business and clean up, asking herself if it was normal and if that something had and would always be there. She had been in the middle of brushing her teeth and wondering if the something even had a name when there was a knock on the door. The bathroom wasn't all that big and the sink was just beside the door, so Namine opened it without thinking. Izuku was there, and he flushed red for a moment before seeing her with the toothbrush still in her mouth and a startling amount of foam on it. How much paste did you use? From her confused blinks, Izuku wasn't sure even she knew. You don't need to use a whole lot. Okay. Just a bit is enough. Sorry, it's fine. He bought it in bulk, like most things he got, to make it cheaper. They would be fine for a while, as long as Pence kept his promise and got Izuku that discount. Anyway, I just wanted to ask how you like your pancakes. I never had a pancake. She said something wrong. Izuku frowned heavily for a second before schooling his features, which meant he was mad, which meant she said something she shouldn't. He broke her from the spiral she fell into by speaking in a forcefully cheerful tone. It's okay, I'll just make them extra special for your first time then. Izuku turned to leave but stopped and asked, you don't have allergies or intolerance to anything, do you? What are allergies? Izuku was going to murder that mummy-faced bastard, and I'm getting you a doctor's appointment later. He nodded to himself and walked away. Namine blinked once, then went back to brushing her teeth. She was sure if she pretended the last 2 minutes didn't happen then it wouldn't be a problem. Pretend. She could do that. Pretend that everything was fine and she was real. It was better than the alternative. Finishing with her teeth, Namine left the bathroom. The moment she saw Izuku and Eri, the oppressive something vanished without a trace. It also had gone away when Izuku was talking to her. Did the two have anything to do with the thing that seemed to press her down when she wasn't with them? Some special power that kept it away, but only worked if they were close enough. What even was it? While she was lost in thought, Eri got to her side and waited for Namine to notice. When she did, the child gently grabbed Namine's hand and pulled her to the bedroom. In there, the little unicorn quickly went to the wardrobe and pulled out some clothes before hastily closing it, making sure Namine hadn't seen what was inside it. You need to change. Why? Namine changed just the day before, which was one time more than she ever had before. Eri tilted her head from side to side. Your clothes get yucky if you use them for too long. You have to put others on and wash the ones you used. Namine blinked. Why hadn't anyone told her that before? Had she been yucky and no one said anything? Was that why everyone was so angry with her all the time? No, don't think about it. Don't speak about it. Bad things happened to her when she spoke of that time. Okay. How do I wash the clothes I wear? Changing the subject to distract herself from bad thoughts, like she always did. It worked, like always. Namine didn't notice Eri's face falling or her almost pitying stare. Izuku does that, but I help him separate the clothes. While starting to change into the new set of clothes Eri got her. A white button-up blouse, an off-white to gray plaid skirt that reached halfway to her knees, and a pink crochet sweater that reached just short of the skirt. The sweater was supposed to be buttoned close, but the buttons were missing, leaving the front open and the tips hanging. Why do you need to separate the clothes? And what happened to the buttons? Namine picked at the sweater to indicate what she was talking about. You have to separate white clothes from colored clothes, or they'll fight in the washing machine and it'll explode. At least that was what Hainer told Eri when she asked him. And that sweater was Jill's, but Torgal ate the buttons. That explained so much, but not as much as Namine wanted. Who's Torgal? The best. If you count only who walks on 4 legs, if not then he's tied with Izuku. Eri grabbed Namine's sleepwear and walked off without further explanation. Namine shook her head and followed after. Back in the main room, Izuku finished the last set of pancakes, piling it on a plate. He noticed her watching, giving the girl a smile. They're almost ready, just need some syrup and we're set. The plates were set on the balcony separating the kitchen from the living room. The smell filled the house and made more than one stomach grumble. Izuku's smile widened, glad to see they liked it. Help me finish? Of course. Namine didn't know what she had to do, but she would try her best anyway. After how much they did for her, it was the least she could do. Pouring the syrup was an experience. Namine struggled with the bottle, and one set of pancakes ended up with too much syrup, but it was all right in the end. There was no anger, no shouting, no pain. They only laughed it off and helped her get it right. Izuku and Eri clapped their hands and showed gratitude for the food, with Namine clumsily trying the same. They ate, it was nice. The pancakes were fluffy and the syrup was sweet. Namine liked it. She liked the warmth that filled the house. She liked the smiles they traded while talking. She liked being with them. That was what a home felt like. Namine was sure. She saw many times what was a true home through the memories of others. And now Namine had a home to call her own. So, what do you think? Looking into their expectant eyes, shining like emeralds and rubies, her sapphire ones could only soften, I like it. After being denied even the right to exist, being able to like something meant more than the world to her. Izuku finished rinsing the last plate, passing it to Namine, who dried it and handed the dish to Eri, who safely stashed it in a drawer. And that's it. This wasn't so hard. Namine's smile from being able to help lit the room up in a way the always low-hanging sun never would. That earned her a hug from Eri and a small grin from Izuku. Now that we're done, you guys can relax a bit while I put the clothes in the washing machine. Izuku patted Eri's head, making the girl look at him. Did you separate the whites? Yes. No clothes are going to fight in the washing machine. What was that about, and why did Izuku feel like it was Heiner's fault? Before he could ask, they heard a yell from outside. The trio was startled, but Izuku quickly dashed to the window. Hey, Izuku. You in there? The one shouting was none other than Clive, who was standing on the street right before Izuku's apartment, completely soaked to the bone. Clive. What happened to you? Long story. I'll tell you on the way. I know it's Saturday but I really need a hand. The older Rossfield wiped his drenched hair back and off his eyes. Can you help? Izuku traded glances with Eri and Namine, both staring back and deferring to his judgment. We'll be down in a sec. He then promptly closed the window and went to get his shoes. Come on, let's go find out what happened. Not a minute later, they were ready to go out and locked everything. Izuku walked faster and was the first out to see Clive trying to wring his shirt right there on the street. What happened? Izuku's concern must have been obvious because Clive tried to wave it off. Everyone's fine, we just had a little accident this morning. Eri was the one to ask now, what type of accident? Clive suddenly turned sheepish. Well, you see. Let me get this straight. You found a string coming out of a power outlet. Yes. Then you decided to pull it. Right, and water started to come out of the power outlet. I was as surprised as you are. And then instead of stopping pulling it, you instead decided, by some god's forsaken reason, to yank the string. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And now you have a trench going up your wall and onto the ceiling, gushing out water. Izuku facepalmed, groaning under his breath. Did I get everything? You forgot the part where Jill's out shopping and we're short a pair of hands. Clive, helpfully, pointed out. No, I didn't forget it. I omitted that part because Jill actually has the brain cells to prevent the situation from ever getting to that point. Hey. Clive's protest made Izuku deadpan at him, making the older boy back down and concede the point. Walking hand in hand a step behind the boys, Namine asked Eri, is he angry? No, he's just annoyed that Clive does silly things when Jill isn't around. Eri giggled, even more so when Clive shot her a betrayed look over his shoulder. Oh, okay. Namine had a harder time identifying annoyance. It usually turned to anger so quickly that she wondered if the two emotions weren't one and the same. She had to figure out if she wanted to keep pretending. While that very concerning line of thought passed through Namine's mind, Izuku's was filled with theories on how the absurdity he just heard could have transpired. Clive wasn't lying, he had no reason to, which meant the Roncone-worthy turn of events somehow happened. When did everything take a turn for the wonky? When he accepted. Probably when he made friends with very eccentric people. Izuku shook his head and was about to ask Clive what exactly was the plan, seeing they were about to reach the Rossfield residence. Bzzz only to suddenly grab Clive's arm and pull him back. Just as the older teen was about to complain, a splash of water came out of the open door and passed by where he had been a second before. Sorry, Clive. Joshua, even more drenched and with a bucket in hand, shouted to his brother before running back inside. All the buckets are almost full. Oh, that's not good. Clive tapped Izuku's arm before rushing inside. Come on, we have to help. Izuku sighed and looked back to Eri and Namine. You two stand back, we'll handle it. Not wanting to be left behind, Eri pulled Namine with her by the hand, getting into the house. Namine marveled at the wide entrance room, with the tall ceiling and the corridors and stairs leading deeper into the house. One such path was drenched with wet footsteps. What should we do? Eri turned to the older girl, frowning in thought. She wasn't sure herself. Before they could decide, a squeaky bark made them jump. Coming down the stairs at the left side of the room, almost tripping down the stairs, was something Namine only saw through memories. A puppy. Small enough to barely reach her calves, sporting a neatly trimmed gray pelt, and looking up at them with crystal blue eyes. Torgal. Eri quickly went to the puppy and grabbed him in her arms before the little canine could actually tumble down the stairs. Hi boy, have you been good? The answering bark must have been affirmative because Eri hugged the pup and rubbed their cheeks together, laughing all the while. The unicorn turned back to Namine and smiled. Hey, you haven't met Namine yet. Go say hello. The blonde watched the dog trot his way to her and sit down on his rear, barking at her and smiling a doggy smile with his tongue out. Namine blinked, unsure for a moment before slowly bending down and patting the pup's head. Hi, Torgal. It's nice to meet you. Torgal barked happily and rubbed himself on Namine's palm, making her smile. Eri came from behind him and picked the puppy up again. Now that you know each other, let's see what the boys are doing. Just then, Izuku, Clive, and Joshua came running with multiple buckets and basins full of water and threw the contents out before dashing back inside, yelling at each other in a hurry. Namine looked back at Eri, blinking owlishly. What was that? I don't know, but I think you should find out. Did you find her? Not yet. We have to bring her back, you know what's at stake. I know. Don't worry, we'll get her back, by any means necessary. What do you mean you don't know where the main pipe connecting the house plumbing to the street is? Izuku barked at Clive, grabbing 4 full buckets before dashing to the door. I don't. Okay. This has been my family house since forever. I wasn't even born when it was built. The older Rossfield yelled back, a plastic tub, probably to bathe Torgal, in hands and almost spilling. That's not an excuse. He's right about that. With another basin in hand, Joshua tried to keep stride with the taller boys. You should be on my side, not the time, hurry. More shouts were traded while the boys desperately threw out the excess water and ran back. Izuku shot Namine, Eri, and Torgal, who were peeking into the constantly flooding room, a reassuring smile with confidence he didn't possess before getting back into the thick of things. It was probably some type of meeting room, with a good space and 2 sofas in the middle facing each other, a low table between them under a chandelier. It would have been fancy if the left wall didn't have a long ripped line that started at a power outlet near the floor, cut through the warm red wallpaper, into the ceiling lining, and all the way to the base of the chandelier dead center on the room. And of course, if the damn thing wasn't leaking all over the place. The multitude of containers of various shapes and sizes trying to stop the mess from spreading didn't help. Why did Izuku agree with that again? There has to be a valve somewhere we can use to cut the water supply, then it's just a matter of waiting for the pipes to run dry. Izuku grabbed another bucket and bolted away. Come on, Clive. Think, where would something like that be? Joshua's question got his brother thinking, but always came up with a blank. I don't know, there's no place in the house with something like that. Then what about outside? Namine's words made everybody look at her, even Izuku who just got back. The girl flinched, but a growing smile on Izuku's face gave her a push to finish. If the pipe connects water from outside to the inside, then putting it at the junction would be best, right? Namine, you're a genius. Izuku turned to the brothers. Okay, someone has to go out and look for it while the others hold the fort here. We're kinda struggling as is. Joshua pushed another pot under the stream before going to throw out the full one. I can look. Once again, Namine didn't know why she spoke, but the surprised and thankful look sent her way clued her it was the right thing to do. Just have to find a big valve going from out there to in here, right? We can help. Eri hopped on her feet. Torgal held in her arms. I know what a valve is and Torgal is good at finding things. She turned her ruby-red eyes to Izuku. Something unseen hiding in them. I can help. You looked like you needed help. Are you sure? Izuku asked calmly, too calmly to the pandemonium he was in the middle of. When they nodded back, Eri's more confident than Namine. And Torgal was just really happy from being able to help. He relented. Okay. If you find it then try to turn it closed, but if it's somewhere too hard to get then come get us. K. Come on, let's go search. Eri grabbed Namine's hand and pulled the older girl away. Izuku managed to send a last reassuring nod her way before focusing back on the chaos at hand. Now outside, Namine felt much less secure about her choice. How will we find it? I said it already, searching. Eri put Torgal on the ground and hummed in thought. If I was going to build a house, where would I put a big pipe to get the water in? Namine turned her head from side to side, trying to look for anything that would give her a clue, then noticed a small detail. The street past this point goes up. If water goes down, then bringing it from up there to down here is easier, right? Eri clapped, right. She turned to the street and looked further up the hill of streets and houses. If the pipes go from up there and bring the water down here, then we just go to the tallest part and search there. Torgal barked his agreement and ran ahead, making the girls trade smiles and follow. Unfortunately, none of the three had enough worldly understanding to know things were more complicated than that, which led to complications and no results. They looked all around the house, then at the points where the neighboring residences made borders with the Rossfield house. No luck. It has to be here, right? Namine's hands were shaking. She didn't say anything wrong, right? She didn't say the valve the three boys were desperately waiting for them to close was outside just for it not to be, right? They wouldn't throw her away from being useless, right? It has to be here. Maybe somewhere in the ground. I can. Namine kneeled and started scratching at the brickwork of the street with her nails, scruffing her fingertips raw, when a hand landed heavily on her shoulder. She yelped and stumbled forward, scrambling away from the person behind her, only for Eri to catch her. The little girl slowly, gently, hugged Namine. It's okay. You can wait until it's not too much anymore. It's only Jill, she'll wait until it's okay. Shaky blue eyes glanced aside, at the older teen girl calmly stepping back. Jill, offered a small smile but didn't do anything more than raise her hands to show she meant no harm. Namine turned back to Eri and a winning Torgal who rubbed his side on her leg in a show of comfort. 1 minute. 2. Her hands stopped shaking, and Namine noticed she could breathe better now. When did it become hard to breathe? A couple more moments and the blackness at the corners of her sight went away. I'm okay now. Eri hugged her a little tighter. Are you sure? Was she? I think so. They separated and got back to their feet, Torgal still rubbing himself on their legs and looking up to ensure the girls were feeling better. Hi there. Eri, who's your new friend? Jill asked her student lightly, a small smile on her face betrayed by the concern in her eyes. The unicorn reached for one of Namine's hands, holding it softly and silently asking if it was okay. When the older girl nodded she answered, this is Namine. She's living with us now. Really now? I didn't think Izuku was like that. Jill saw bouts of extreme shyness from her friend enough times to figure he wouldn't be so forward. Unfortunately, reality was much more complicated than that. Izuku saved her from a bad man too. He's also gonna take care of Namine, like. The little girl suddenly clammed up, her free hand slapping over her mouth. A look of panic flashed over her eyes for a second. Namine barely saw the memory all but slamming into her mind. Aries' grip was a direct connection to it. Wind and light. The sky. A monster. Green. A bird. Red eyes and then darkness. Jill rushed to them, kneeling before the little girl and taking her hand away from her lips. It's okay, Aries. If you don't want to say it then it's fine, no one will force you. We won't tell anyone what you let slip, okay? Aries slowly nodded, the movement jerky and frazzled even then. Now, what are you two? Before Jill could even properly ask, a loud clunk filled the street, making the girls jump. Clive, I told you to hold it. Hold what? It's a damn tub, there's nothing to hold. What about the god's damn handle on the bottom? Izuku, why's there a handle on the tub? Another clunk, and a yell of pain, clued the girls the conversation had become a lot less civilized. Jill sighed and got back up, running her hand over Aries' head gently. Forget I asked. Come on, let's go break up the children before they throttle each other. The older teen led the march back inside, following the waterworks to ground zero. Seeing the damage, the chaos, and Izuku threatening Clive with a bathtub made Jill hold the bridge of her nose and sigh. She wasn't even mad, just disappointed that she expected anything else. Boys. Her yell made the freeze, Izuku trying to hide the bathtub behind his back a moment later. It's Clive's fault. Izuku's tactical sacrifice made the older Rossfield cry out in protest. I bet. Now move aside, I'll fix this. Izuku was about to open his mouth to ask when a chill overtook the room. His eyes widened when a layer of frost covered Jill's skin, her hair turning white and condensation formed in the air around her. 80% of the population had ki. What was that? Before Izuku could ask, Clive grabbed his arm and pulled him out of the room. Joshua had made his escape already, and with the three out of the way, Jill had free rein to do her thing. The said thing was waving her arm and flash freezing all the water, sealing the carved-up wall shut and stopping the flood. Izuku stared fixedly at the Winter Wonderland scene that just come into being before his eyes. Like shish, no one could make something like that, it. Bzzzzz. Izuku's eyes snapped to the chandelier right when its frozen base suddenly snapped. Jill was right under it. His veins heat up, she would get hurt. The smell of burnt ozone filled his nose, he had to move. Viridescent arcs burst from Izuku's form. In a blink he grabbed the chandelier as if it weighed nothing, holding it aloft. He turned back to the surprised Jill. You okay? Yes. I didn't know you could use magic, Izuku. The drumming in his ears became deafening. The cloak of power over him spazzed wildly as Izuku's mind blanked. Magic? It was his coup. Izuku couldn't. He didn't have a coup. The eyes on him were piercing. He couldn't breathe. Need out. Sorry. Sorry. The chandelier made a horrible noise when Izuku dropped it on the table, but he paid it no mind. He just needed to get out of there now. In a blur, he was outside, hands on his knees and struggling to fill his lungs. The energy over him cracked sharply before being forcefully snuffed out. For an infinitely long moment, Izuku's only company was the drumming of his heart. Then a voice called out softly, Izuku? He turned to see Joshua, the child approaching slowly with his hands clasped tightly. Are you okay? Why wasn't he? Izuku didn't know why the panic in his veins refused to leave, nor where it came from. I don't know. Suddenly, Izuku realized there was a lot he didn't know. Or refused to admit he knew. Joshua sat on the steps leading to the house, not bothering with how wet they were when he was drenched himself. They stayed quiet in a tense silence that calmed little by little. After a minute, Joshua broke the fragile tranquility. It's scary, right? Izuku blinked and straightened, turning to the boy with a raised brow. What is? Being capable of doing something that doesn't make sense. The younger Rossfield cupped his hands, and from it, tiny wisps of flame sprung forward. Something. A voice that seemed miles away spoke to a deep part of Izuku, and it said that it was incredible. Joshua just disregarded thermodynamics entirely and did what could frankly be called a miracle. That's amazing. Izuku didn't realize that he spoke out loud until Joshua turned to him. Aren't you scared of magic? That was a coup, so that was magic? Real magic? No, that's great. If you can produce fire at will, you could help a lot of people. It's amazing. The applications of something seemingly simple were almost endless. Then why did you run when you used yours? A jolt of panic shot through Izuku so forcefully that he almost physically stumbled. I don't know. I didn't even know I could do that. When I used it before, I was in a bad spot, and after it seemed more like a dream than anything. Joshua slowly nodded, taking a moment to take in the explanation. I know what you mean. When I awakened, mine father was. Joshua trailed off, a profound grief overtaking him. He took a deep breath and shook his head. What I'm saying is that it's easy to think you're still there in that bad spot when you use it. Wasn't that the truth? Yeah. They lulled into another moment of silence. A more commiserate one this time. Joshua stared at the flames in his palms, frowning and focusing. The fire grew, flying out of his palm and condensing into an orb that lazily floated around them. The boy smiled at Izuku, who watched the will-o-wisp transfixed. We can let the bad memories hold us back, though. Why did those words hit so close to his heart? Why? He wasn't sure. Izuku still took note of them. If that man who had mistreated Namine came back, would he be too scared to fight back? Busy, the heat pooling in his fist dragged Izuku's eyes to it and the arcs of energy sparking over his skin. Bringing his hand over the fist, Izuku took a second to settle his nerves, then let the power inside him flow its natural course. Ruby-red lines glowed from inside, marking his skin. They crawled up, spreading from the tip of his toes to his head. When the circuit closed, power burst forward in a cloak of viridescent arcs. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's your power. It's your power. You can be a he could protect her. With this power. With his fists. With whatever would be needed. Izuku promised that he would not go back on his word. Turning back to Joshua with a brilliant smile on his face, Izuku raised his lightning-covered fist. Let's go clean this mess. Joshua returned the smile and got up, flames dancing over his form and long feathers made of seemingly solid fire bursting from his back. Yeah, let's. They bumped fists, making sparks and embers fly. Thanks for watching.